What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Grinders Live in the afternoon, the OG edition. I'm your host for this one, Head Chopper, and we're going to walk you through some players for tonight's slate, get you going. And as always on this Wednesday show, I'm joined by Notorious, and I want to bring him in first before we talk about the absence of the other guy, the third member here. But Notorious, how's your Wednesday treating you so far?
I was doing good. I was gonna say, our hosts are dropping just like the NBA games. You know, we had the Portland game get postponed. That was gonna be my favorite of the slate. Now we got Bear dropping out on us. Got a little toothache going on, so hopefully he gets better. And at least we can hopefully pass him in the picks.
Yeah, we're joking before the show. I would much rather be doing a Grinders Live than to have a toothache, man. Those are the worst. So hope he can get better. Hopefully it's not a Big T situation where he's all got to go to the emergency room for the too much sweet candy, man. And what are the old sugary cigarettes, the candy cigarettes? Big T's been sucking on too many candy cigarettes, man. Hopefully beer's all right. But we're going to break it down. Like you said, we've lost probably what I was thinking was the best game of the night already, Portland and Memphis. So that one's off the board, but there's still a lot of other games. So we're gonna fight through all that. We're gonna have our boy SBK on here in a little bit to talk about that. Chat. This is a chat-driven show, so get all your stuff, get all your questions out there, get all your comments out there. We're gonna be very interactive here. Near the end of the show, I'll give you some heads up. But near the end of the show, we're gonna be asking you 3 picks. We're gonna get 3 picks against the spread or total tonight in these NBA games, and we're going to leave it up to you guys. So when I go and do that later on, it's just going to be you guys firing off your favorite plays in the chat, and we'll look at it for a consensus, and we'll grab 3 of them and mark it down as the chat plays. So, and we'll bring up all the graphics later as to how we did last week and how we're doing on the air. Heads up though, not so good, buddy. We didn't have a good week. We had a great week 1, not such a good week 2, but it's a long season, so we're in it for the duration. All right. With all that being said, want to also point out for you guys, the RG Premium is the big deal right now. You want to, they've got a new thing. You can select any sport you want. You can break it down to a sport, or you can combo the sports up. You can, it's the premium package. You can do a lot with that. There is a link for $10 off your first month. I'm sure our producer, Devin, is going to drop that wherever it is, or if not, then whatever, you can find it. It's somewhere out there, but there is a link for $10 off, but it's a new deal here from the RG Premium. You have you can just go with one sport. If you love one sport and you just want premium in one sport, you don't have to buy that big package that consists of all the sports. You can just do one, or you can do the combo. If you like MMA and you like NBA, combo them up or whatever you want to do. But Notorious, did you watch any MMA today? They had it on at like 8 in the morning, man.
I saw some tweets about it. I didn't know what was going on. I was a little confused, but I didn't watch any. During the COVID break and all that, I got pretty big into it. But ever since we have had other sports coming back, haven't been too driven by UFC. What about you?
It's been like this is how I do every year. This is a cycle. Like during football season, I absolutely don't pay attention to it very much at all, And as we get into NBA, I'll start looking a little bit more. But then by the time the summer hits and it's just baseball, I'm all in on MMA. It's a cyclical thing. So but it was fun. It's always fun when you're waking up and you're watching some fights when there's nothing else going on. Now, there was another big thing going on today. It was the presidential inauguration. I didn't get to catch too much of that, but I think everything went off without a hitch. So we're good there. Looking in the chat now, for all the questions you got, guys, whether it be, we prefer a little strategy talk. Strategy is good. Player for player is not really, it's okay. I can do that for you too. But, Blender says it best, man. How does he say it? Come on, give it to us. How does Blender do it?
Play who we want.
Play whoever you want to play. Play whoever you want to play. That's what it is, man. So,
and hey, DK might be onto something. Kevin Huerter was like, what, 9,500? And DeAndre Hunter, doubtful. Cam Reddish, doubtful. Here we go. Trae Young's going to be out soon.
Oh, man.
Maybe they knew what they were doing.
Well, I tell you what, it's a good point because there's a big discrepancy in his price between DK and FanDuel. And I look at FanDuel now, and that's looking like a pretty juicy play over there, man, with all these injuries. So we're going to talk about that position a lot more. And here in a few minutes, we'll get SBK on to talk about some other things. If you guys have any questions specifically for SBK in the projections, and what you see something that may be a little fishy, or you just question it, like shoot the questions out there. I'll get them and I'll let him answer them, because that's a big deal, man. A little bit behind the curtains. We'll get a little bit behind the curtains look, but otherwise, let's go ahead and get cranked up, man. You want to get cranked up, and let's talk about some point guards. Let's crank it up with the point guards. I'm looking over the scene here. We've got one big guy, Luka Doncic, with a bigger projection than anybody else. He's followed up by some really solid plays, and it drifts down. There's about 15 guys in this category here that I look at and I say, well, you know what? I really like them. So I got a few guys standing out to me, but I want you to tell me anybody at point guard you're looking at that stands out the most for you.
All right, so I think my favorite point guards on DraftKings are also shooting guard eligible, and they're actually shooting guards on FanDuel. So I'll save those for the shooting guard position. Point guard, man, I was really looking forward to stacking up Damian Lillard, Ja Morant. That was going to be my strategy in pretty much all my lineups tonight. So now it opens things up. I definitely think you can go the safer route with somebody like Chris Paul. Meansy has him tagged as a core play on FanDuel. Makes a lot of sense. I think he's top 33 fantasy points in 6 or 7 straight games. Good matchup against Houston. So I don't mind going that route. I always like Stephen Curry in tournaments. You can pair him up with DeJounte Murray too if you want to do that same, dueling point guard strategy that we're talking about with Ja and Lillard. And then Luka, you can always pay up for Luka. Now that there's a couple of superstars that we don't have on the board anymore, Luka becomes a lot more appealing. He's one of those guys that just can do a little bit of everything. Had a down game his last time out, but I think he averaged 72 fantasy points per game in his previous 6 games. And then my favorite tournament play is probably going to be Trae Young. He's just one of those guys. You throw out his median projection, he's either going to get you 50 plus, or he's going to have an off night shooting the ball and he's going to get you 35. So there's a handful of guys that I just when it comes to tournaments, you throw out their projection and you just look at their ceiling, and I think Trae Young's one of those guys.
Yeah, Trae Young's there. Luka, obviously. You mentioned a guy in passing. One of my favorite plays tonight, DeJounte Murray at this position. I'm going strictly right now by FanDuel, because he could be shooting guard eligible. I have no idea, but just looking at the FanDuel point guards. But DeJounte Murray, man, against Golden State, the guy's been really good this year, taking on a bigger role with Derrick White out. I like DeJounte. Chris Paul, man. We'll talk about Chris Paul here in a little bit too. A little spoiler on my monkey knife fight, but Chris Paul revenge, man. He don't like Houston. Even though Harden's not there anymore, and even though Daryl Morey's gone, I know he still has to have some ill feelings towards Tillman Fertitta. So Chris Paul revenge game, got to get on that. And question for you, I got a question for you, Notorious. How do you like? I look at the Cleveland backcourt coming back from injuries. 2 solid players, 2 solid fantasy guys. Do you have any interest in Garland or Sexton? I mean, it looks like they're going to play. I'm not seeing them listed as out tonight, but it should be a pretty good game, right? Like, do you have any interest in those guys?
We just haven't seen them for so long. Point guard is usually a position that, I really like to feel confident about. And they're currently game time decisions. We'll get SBK. We'll ask him about those guys, see if they're going to be on any kind of minutes track. I like to look at that stuff, and I know they're, really locked into the minute projections, but I think earlier in the day we had them both at around 32. So I got to think they're going to be close to full strength, and that's going to be a fun game. We get to see the big 3 from Brooklyn starting up. So do you have any interest in Kyrie?
Oh man, that's a good one. It's one of the things it's a question I'm saving for SBK. I definitely got some questions for him, but I do not. I don't like if he ends up on some of my teams just because, tonight's a weird night and we do the show and we only got a certain amount of time to go build lineups after this. And so I've limited my play to just FanDuel, and I'll build a bunch of lineups. If he ends up in there, it's just because the projections were high enough to stick him in some. But if I'm hand building, I'm not playing Kyrie tonight. I don't have any interest in it. It's the other guys though that are really interesting. I would probably never have the interest in Kyrie with everybody healthy. It's how much does he take away from Harden and Durant, and we'll talk about those guys next at the next positions. But Kyrie, man, what do you think is going to happen tonight with that whole situation? Who do you think is going to be the alpha?
Oh man, that's a good question. I do think Kyrie's probably going to be third in the mix, but I think they're all going to get their points, and it's just going to be not enough peripheral stats to go around. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. If they can make it work, it's going to be a lot of fun. And if not, I think the first game out, they're really going to try to get Kyrie going, just because we've seen Durant and Harden go off each of the last 2 games. And Kyrie was like watching from the sideline the last game. Kind of felt like the odd man out there. So I think they get him going early. But, yeah, I don't know. It should be a fun situation to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's I think it's going to work. I think they're going to punch their ticket in the Eastern Conference to get to the finals. It's just going to be too tough. And well, you think that's a shocker? Like I thought that was a no-brainer. Like I'm looking around and who else? I don't know, man. Boston doesn't look the same this year. They don't look as good, and Philly I think is kind of fraudulent a little bit. Once they get to the playoffs, I don't think so. So there's not a whole lot of competition out there for them. But I think it'll work just because that offense is going to be pretty hardcore. Who you got coming out of the East?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hadn't really put much thought into it. I just want to see them all together first. But if they can make it work, I mean, you have a lot of strong personalities there in that locker room. I think KD's going to make it work with whoever he's playing with. As long as they can keep Harden in check and, Kyrie on the court, I think they're going to be pretty good. And for you Top Shot guys out there, I think Kyrie, are you into the Top Shot game yet?
I love me some sports cards. I have not gotten into the Top Shot yet.
So I just started like 2 days ago. No idea what I'm doing. But compared to the other superstars, Kyrie feels a little underpriced right now. So, buy him up before tonight's game.
Oh, that's nice. Nice. So we got Grant Neefer is in the chat. Grant Neefer's in the chat, man. That's your boy, Grant. He's in there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go, man. So I got a question for you from the chat. DraftKings, would you rather have Luka or take the discount with Steph Curry tonight?
Ooh, I guess it would have to be like a 2v2 for me. I have them projected pretty close point per dollar. So I'd have to see what the savings got for me. If I could use 1,000, I'd probably go Curry. What about you?
That's a good question, man. Yeah. You know what? Well, guy we didn't even talk about, Malcolm Brogdon in that game with Luka. Maybe that's the tiebreaker for me. Brogdon, a really good defender. So maybe Luka struggles just a hair and can't quite meet that price tag. So I think I'd go Curry, man, just because that's a tougher matchup than what people want to say against Indiana when Brogdon's on you. He's a tough one. So lots of options. Kemba's making his return tonight. Any interest in all that? Kemba, super cheap price, at least on FanDuel, he's really cheap. But he's going to be on a minutes limit. But we've seen guys like this can get hot in their minutes limit and blow away their price tag. Any interest in Kemba?
So he played 20 the other night, and he got hurt and ended up leaving the game early. So I was hoping, he would get bumped up to 26 or 28. But it sounds like he's still going to be on a 20-minute limit. So probably no Kemba for me. But there's not a lot of value plays that I like. Is there anybody that's cheap on FanDuel that you like at point guard? We did get a question about Fox. Any interest there either?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Fox is a solid play. The cheapest guy I have on my board right now is Goran Dragic. Assuming he plays and assuming he's, going to be in there and healthy, 5,200 on FanDuel. Without Jimmy Butler, that's not a bad price tag for Goran. What do you think about the Dragon?
I don't know if there's going to be any shots available. We got a birthday narrative in that backcourt. I don't know.
Who's Tyler Hero? Man, it's a tough matchup with Toronto, though. That's not a cakewalk, but yeah, you're right, man. Those birthdays, they are the thing that transcend the spoilers here.
So I got one cheap play that nobody's going to be on. Cole Anthony against Minnesota. That game's just going to be a shootout. Neither team plays defense. Both pretty decent in terms of pace, so I don't mind him.
All right, Cole Anthony sounds good. Is SBK on the horn yet, or can we skip around to Let's go to another. You want to do another position? Let's talk about some shooting guards while we wait on SBK to come up here. We mentioned some guys who have dual eligibility. Harden, we talked about a little bit. Harden's your big dog here, like significantly projected higher than anybody in this category on FanDuel at least. And then you got some really good mid-tier guys, some guys I'm really interested in, like a Paul George, a DeMar DeRozan. I think it's a great matchup for DeMar. And Oladipo, man, he made his Houston debut last time out. Got a lot more minutes than what a lot of people thought, and he crushed it. Like after a very slow start, he crushed it in the last 3 quarters and absolutely went crazy. So who's your favorite shooting guards? Any interest in any of those guys?
Was that Oladipo you said?
Yeah, Depot.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be one of my favorites. Still below 8K. His usage rate, 42% in that first game. It was pretty wild. He averaged like 1.6 fantasy points per minute. Got to think the shot's going to be there again. The matchup's not nearly as good this time around, but I'll chase the usage, and that game's at home. So I don't mind going to Depot. I also like D'Angelo Russell as kind of a tournament play. Similar to Trae Young, you don't target him for his median projection. He's not a guy that's ever going to, pop as a best point per dollar option, but he's been finally picking it up a little bit. No Karl Anthony Towns, and it's a good matchup against Magic. I think that game has some sneaky shootout potential, and there's a lot of pieces that I like. I think everyone's going to go with the value plays in the front court there, but I think you can play, Vucevic, Russell, some of the other guys that you can spend up on. So those will be my two favorite mid-range options. I'm not going to be going to Harden. I want to take a wait-and-see approach with that situation. And again, I think they get Kyrie going a little bit more. And Paul George and Kawhi, I never get these two right. It seems like they're both going to crush tonight against the Kings. I think they're dead last in defensive rating. So do you have a preference between those two?
No, not really, man. I think either one of them can have a big game at any moment or any game. So I can go either way right there. But I think we got SBK now on the horn. So we're going to pause our shooting guard talk right now, and we want to bring in SBK, the one of the guys who's in charge here of working the projections at Rotogrinders. A little behind the scenes look. SBK, how you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're hanging in there. We're doing good. We got talk to me about the overlay on this slate. We got our game canceled already, so take a lot of good players off the board for us. But how's this slate break down for you in comparison to the to other slates we do on a daily basis as far as like news so far today? Big news so far?
So a couple things we're still waiting on. It looks like we will see Colin Sexton for the Cavs. We'll have him back, but still will not have Darius Garland. That's at least what it's looking like right now. So that kind of changes that situation. I think that team's probably the most like in flux, just given that they have Jared Allen and Taurean Prince now in the fold, plus getting some of these guards back healthy. Like we saw like Chetty Osman playing really well. Who knows what his role is at this point? Probably just like a sixth man of sorts. So Cleveland's pretty strange. I don't think we're really looking in that direction too much anyway. They're, double-digit underdogs against the Nets, rightfully so. Besides that, Miles Turner is a pretty big one that we're still waiting on. If he sits, I don't think it really creates any like clear, like value that we'd feel all that confident in. But Doug McDermott probably starts, probably plays like minutes in the mid-30s. Might see some Jakar Sampson if he's active. And then obviously that helps the case of Domantas Sabonis, who gets a 3.4% usage bump with Turner off the floor this year and also with Oladipo off. Malcolm Brogdon will be a slightly more appealing play. So that's kind of the biggest piece that I'm still waiting on now. They also are going to get Jeremy Lamb back tonight, although he's coming off a torn ACL, missing almost a year. So I don't think he'll play more than like 15 minutes maybe at most.
All right, so I got some questions for you here. A couple questions instead. You talked about one of them already, but I thought it was interesting. I think it is a smash spot potentially for Andre Drummond. I think what paced up game, going to score a lot of points. But yeah, we got Jared Allen lurking in the wings there, man. How is the projection team divvying out those minutes right now?
So at this point, we have Drummond at 31. Which I believe is exactly where I was last night. Still a pretty healthy projection. I mean, but you kind of touched on it. Like we don't know exactly how Jared Allen is going to factor into the rotation. I assume he's probably just going to be a backup big. They had played some with Drummond and JaVale both on together. I don't really think that's something they're going to do now that they're healthier. So we have Allen at 18 minutes, Drummond at 31. So I guess 1 minute of projected overlap in case they do, potentially go that route. So Drummond's still definitely in play, but carries considerably more risk tonight than he has over the last couple of weeks.
And then the other question I had for you was how are we treating the Brooklyn Big Three with them all finally intact and should be suited up and playing tonight?
Yeah, that was a tough one. I'll be honest. We obviously haven't seen these three on the floor together. They're all three are usage monsters. But I think that kind of like we've seen with Durant and Harden first couple of games, like they are going to be basically the entire offense. So, and that obviously continue with Kyrie there now. We still have, so of the three, we have Harden with the highest projection at just a shade under 50 DraftKings points. Kevin Durant's about 2 points behind him, and Kyrie Irving is a shade under 40 fantasy points. His projected minutes are also a shade lower too, given that he's kind of working his way back. So the fantasy point per minute marks aren't all that different. Harden leads the way among those three. But yeah, I mean, that's obviously a situation that we'll be monitoring very closely over the next couple of games to see kind of how things shake out between those three.
All right, I got a question from the chat. I think it's really relevant tonight because I'm one that's on the Vucevic train. Later on, we'll talk about centers, but I like Vucevic. I think it's a good spot for him. Aaron Gordon's putting up some monster numbers, but those recent games have all been for both those guys. With Evan Fournier out, now he should be coming back tonight. What's the how much is that going to dip into those guys' usage?
So I can bring that up real quick. We have 48 projected for 28 minutes right now, which I think is probably pretty realistic, just given that he's missed some time. We still have Vucevic projected for over 50 fantasy points on DraftKings, so it's not like we're really docking him too much. But let's see what the Magic look like with Fournier off in terms of fantasy point per minute numbers. In terms of usage, Vucevic actually is basically the same player. I mean, the usage is 0.5% lower. So, at least this season, he's basically been kind of the same guy, which is a little bit surprising. But, I think Vucevic is definitely in play, and I don't think the Magic are like, a team you kind of can't look at in this spot. I mean, they're playing one of the worst defensive teams in the league in Minnesota, who, like, without Karl-Anthony Towns, doesn't even really look like an NBA basketball team. So he should feast tonight against, I guess, what you could call the Minnesota Bigs. There's really not any good ones there. So, yeah, I don't have any problem looking in that direction despite Fournier being back.
Noto, you got any questions?
Yeah, SPK, what's up, man? I got two questions for you. Break down the Andrew Wiggins injury if he ends up being out. Who stands to benefit the most? Can we play Kelly Oubre, who's been pretty terrible but picking it up recently? And then second question, how much did Allen boost Tyler Hero's projection because of his birthday?
Yeah, I did see somebody bring up the Tyler Hero birthday thing. I don't think the projection actually got touched, but I'm sure Allen wanted to. So we have in the what-if projections, we have a scenario for what happens if Wiggins is out. At that point, we'd have Kelly Oubre at a 34-minute projection and about 31 DraftKings points, so he's definitely in play. The guy off the bench who gets the biggest bump, at least according to how we have it now, is Damian Lee, but even he wouldn't really be all that. He would shade under 20 fantasy points. There's not somebody you want to look at for DFS purposes. Kent Bazemore not far behind him either. So those two kind of get the extra run off the bench, and we would expect the starters to maybe play a tad more. We have Curry at 36 minutes. We usually have him at 35. And we have Oubre at 34 in this scenario where we usually have him at about 29.
You got anything else, Derek?
Any big beneficiaries for the Hawks if Reddish and Hunter end up being out, other than Kevin Huerter at 9.5K?
DraftKings must have known, but it is. I did see a tweet from Brad Rowland a minute or two before I came on, where he had noted that there's nothing from the Hawks has come out in terms of Hunter and Reddish being doubtful. So he was speculating that it might be a mistake on the injury report. So that's still a situation I'm keeping an eye on and kind of treating, I guess, kind of those guys as questionable until we hopefully get something more concrete. But yeah, I mean, Huerter would be a really nice play if he wasn't one of the most expensive guys on DraftKings. So he obviously gets a pretty noticeable bump, especially with those two guys off. Other than that, we might see some more Solomon Hill, but Huerter is really the big winner on the wing.
All right, man. We appreciate you coming on and breaking some things down for us. Now you can go back to the cave, man, and keep it up, right? And don't forget to bump up an extra 4 field goal attempts for Tyler Hero. Birthdays, man. Birthdays, dude.
Bump it up.
Even better.
Oh, man.
Tyler Hero is out. He's out. Too much birthday cake for him.
He's heading to the club already.
Too much birthday cake. SPK, you got to go work on that, man. That's going to really.
Yeah, man.
that wasn't even something that was projected throughout the day, right? So.
Yeah, I believe he was considered questionable. But yeah, I'm going to run. Good luck tonight, guys, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right, later. We appreciate him coming on for us, man. That's big time. That's big time. So let him get back to work and break that down. Derek, we were just talking about shooting guards, man, and Tyler Hero is one of the guys. How does this change things for Miami now with Butler and Tyler Hero out?
Well, so the other night, Dragic got the start with Hero out. Ended up playing minutes in the 30s, and then Kendrick Nunn ended up playing minutes in the 30s as well. I gotta see what Nunn. So Nunn's at 5.5K on FanDuel. That seems a little pricey, but I think he's only 4K on DraftKings. So he's going to be an interesting value play. Dragic is obviously going to be a strong play across the board. So yeah, now we got some valuable point guards. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, Dragic was a guy I was eyeballing anyway. So now we really get the full Monty here, man. All right, let's talk about a few more shooting guards. Any interest for you in one Derrick Rose, who's looked pretty darn good when he's been healthy this year, and now he takes on Trae Young in Atlanta. That's got to be a pretty juicy matchup for him. So, any interest in Derrick Rose?
No, I only build one lineup per site, and so I usually just don't find myself taking those guys that rely on extreme efficiency off the bench. And Rose is one of those guys. He's strictly limited to like 26 minutes off the bench. So I probably won't get there in a slate this size. What about you?
I got some interest in him. Like I said, I'm not on a night like tonight. I don't want to have to meticulously comb over and just play one lineup. So I'm just going to play multiple lineups and let the projections do a lot of the work for me. And Derrick Rose has some pretty good numbers next to his name for that salary. So I think he'll end up on some teams. But we're at the shooting guard position, and that's where I think it's a good chance to break here and do our monkey knife fight picks, because mine features guys that we've already talked about. So in case you guys didn't know, monkey knife fight promo, they got a promo going on, 100% deposit bonus up to $50 with the code Grinders, Grinders. Grinders, get you a free $50 on that. Now I've got guys from that Houston game. I'm going more than 7.5 assists on Chris Paul and more than 24.5 assists or points for Victor Oladipo. I think Chris Paul really does have a little bit of a revenge streak in him tonight. And I think he's going to come and smash and put up good numbers, and some of that's going to be facilitating for others. And then Depot just looked like a monster after he got settled down for Houston in that last game. Still no John Wall. So he's going to get all kinds of shot attempts. I think 24.5 in this game is a pretty good bar for him. I think it's very obtainable. What's your picks, man?
All right, I went with Kawhi Leonard over 47.5. They got one of the best matchups on the board against the Kings. He's one of those guys. He hasn't really played all that well this season, and he's still averaging like 48 fantasy points per game. He's starting to pick it up a little bit. And then Stephen Curry, 45.5 just seems a little too easy for him. If they're going to keep that game close, which it should be, I think that spread's only at 1 point right now at home against the Spurs. I like the over on that one as well. And what do you think the percentage of, on these more or less bets, what do you think the percentage of where people put more? Because it seems like every time I see, I want to click the more button.
I mean, it's like betting an over under.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to take under, man. That's the worst sweat in the world, to sit there and root for punts or, missed shots. That's terrible. So everybody kind of wants to go up more. So yeah, I think you're probably in the 75%. I'd like to know the numbers, but I think you're right. I think 75% of the people go more. They find the things that are more, right?
Yeah. And hey, you always got overtime to bail you out.
Yeah, you can always
overtimes if you need it.
Always bank on overtime, man. So let's go to some small forwards. We already talked about Kawhi. He's one of your favorite plays, one of my favorite plays too. Great matchup. Our own Dean 78904 or whatever that tag is. He threw out a stat on Twitter here, and I actually stole it from my survey. But the Kings have the worst defensive rating in the NBA, and the gap between them and the next worst is as significant as the gap between the Lakers and the 21st best defense. Like Lakers being the best and the 21st. Like, it's a huge gap right there. So they're defensive rating wise, they are by far, hands down, the worst defense in the NBA. Kawhi Leonard gets that matchup. I like him. You like him. So we're on that one. Some other guys that are at the top of the projections there. I like Jaylen Brown tonight. I know Philly plays good defense, but no Jason Tatum. I think Jaylen Brown can be a one-man show at times. I like a little Jaylen Brown. Anybody you like from the upper tier here?
Yeah, you hit on the two guys I like the most. I like Kawhi. The price point, especially on FanDuel, just seems way too cheap at 9.1K. Honestly, you could probably pair him up with Paul George. They currently rate out as two of our better point per dollar guys at their position. And you mentioned the defensive rating. That's a really nice stat. So thanks for that, Dean. And Chop, then the other guy you mentioned, Jaylen Brown. I think he's really sneaky. He just is a monster with or without Tatum, but you got to think the usage is going to go up. Not too worried about Kemba being back. And that spread seemed awfully funny to me at 4.5 points, and it's actually getting bet down. I think it opened at 5. No Jason Tatum on the road against Philly, who is 7-1 at home, and people keep betting on the Celtics. So to me, that says they're going to play well, and that's going to be Jaylen Brown. So I like both those calls. And then for value, yeah, it's kind of an ugly position for value. Small forward usually one of the worst positions on the slate, and it looks like that's the case tonight. You can go to Eric Gordon against the Suns, but he's one of those guys. Whenever he's chalk, he just puts up 16 points and nothing else. I like Oladipo a lot more in that spot. We have Kelly Oubre you can kind of play and hope Andrew Wiggins ends up being out. Do you have any value? But then we have Jeremy Grant. I mean, if you play Jeremy Grant, I keep wanting to, and then I never do it when lineups lock, and he keeps crushing.
He's crushing, man. After he had like the first couple games this year were a little bit rough or whatever, how many ever it was, he's settled in. He's doing well. I like Jeremy Grant, especially on a site like FanDuel that rewards some of those things he can do on the court, blocks and steals and stuff. I think the biggest value I'm saying is not even a value because his price kind of jumped up here recently with the injuries. But now that Tyler Hero's out, Duncan Robinson becomes a little bit even more appealing with his 3-point range and doing those things. So Duncan Robinson's on the board. I know he's a little bit overpriced here, Larry Nance Jr., but man, I love this game environment. Brooklyn's going to score a ton of points, and they're going to push the pace probably. We actually don't know. Maybe they really slow it down, but I don't think that's what Steve Nash wants to do. I think they want to push the pace. If we get into an up and down game, a guy like Larry Nance can use his athleticism in the front court and take advantage of the Brooklyn side. So I like Larry Nance in the mid-range. And the guy who's putting up pretty good numbers, Mikal Bridges for Phoenix, they get a good matchup against Houston, and I'm on that one. So I got a question for you here on OG Anunoby. Like, he has good games. He has monster games sometimes, and he has absolute floor games too. And I don't know what to think about OG, man. What do you think about OG tonight taking on Miami?
He's one of those guys I always try to play if I'm building more than one lineup because, like you mentioned, he has like a bunch of slate-breaking performances each and every year, and he can do it with only taking like 5 or 6 shots a game because he usually only takes threes, and then he gets like blocks and steals and fills up the stat sheet. He's top 30 in 4 straight games. I don't mind him, and I also don't mind his teammate Siakam. He's listed as a small forward today on FanDuel, which is kind of nice. He's at 8K. I know he had a down game the time before this, but prior to that, he had at least 44 minutes and at least 44 fantasy points in 36 minutes in 4 of his previous 6 games. And we talked about liking Dragic and some of the guys from Miami. If you want to bring it back with somebody on Toronto, I think Siakam's interesting. And then the one Nets player that I actually don't mind if you want to save some salary, small forward, is Joe Harris. I think he's going to get a million open looks in this offense. All the defensive attention is going to be placed on the big 3. Nobody's going to be guarding Harris. He's only 4.5K, still projected for over 30 minutes. Could I talk into him at all?
I think you could talk me into him, but he has question marks like everybody else. That's going to be tough. Like, as good as they are, I don't know if I'm really jumping through hoops to play any of them. Even the big 3. So it's going to be interesting. But I know as of right now, I probably won't have very much. But if you told me that you wrote your article and your article says he pops, then I'm playing him because I trust you. But got a couple questions. Let's get to a couple questions from chat. I'll take this one. It says Christian Wood or D'Angelo Russell on FanDuel. And I've been looking at FanDuel quite a bit today. I like Christian Wood tonight. The power forward, we're going to talk about power forwards next, but it's the thinnest position at FanDuel tonight. So why not lock up? Christian Wood's been unreal this year. Lock that up. You've got you've got guys that play D'Angelo's position. So you got that. Got another one here for you. Let me see if I can find it, man. Dan Bach. I saw Dan Bach earlier. He threw me for a loop, man. So I don't know. Let's
right,
see
what about
here.
D'Angelo or Depot?
That's a good one, man. I'm going Depot. What about you?
Yeah, I'll go Depot, but I kind of like them both. And to answer the other question that you just answered, I'll actually go D'Lo over Christian Wood, just because I like the values at power forward. We're going to get to here in a minute, but for once, I actually think it's a decent position on FanDuel.
Yeah, get the questions in, guys. And let me see. Is Milton in play tonight instead of a chalky Dragic? I'll let you. Would you rather have a little Shake Milton or a chalky Goran Dragic?
I mean, Seth Curry being out helps a little bit, but I'll still take chalky Dragic and look to differentiate elsewhere.
I think I'm with you. Let's talk about those power fours now. We already talked about Christian Wood. I think he's just an incredible player, man. He's doing everything that we saw him do these last couple of years when he got big run and he was a fantasy god. And they signed him, and now they're giving him big minutes. He's doing it. So you got to like some Christian Wood. Sabonis is always in play, super expensive, but matchup against Dallas, he's always going to be in play. Then it takes a bit of a downturn after that at the power forward position. You get into some guys who are really iffy. I think Aaron Gordon is okay, put up some big numbers. Curious to see if he does it with Fournier in tonight. And I got to ask you about this guy, man, because this guy is crazy. This guy, he's polarizing, right? Price tag has jumped up now, but man, he can be so good per minute. And that's Chris Boucher, man. What do you think? Can you play him tonight at these price tags? He's so polarizing.
Dude, it's kind of the same thing with Jeremy Grant. I keep seeing his price and be like, it's a little too much for me tonight. Maybe I'll play him when he gets cheaper. And then he just keeps getting more and more expensive because he just keeps crushing. We've seen him play 30-plus minutes in the past, but it's not guaranteed. Last game, he only played 28. So I don't think I could do it in a single entry type of build. But if you're playing MME, absolutely get some exposure to him. You mentioned a couple guys at the top that I like. Certainly don't disagree with Sabonis or Christian Wood. I think they're both solid. Sabonis, a lot of people we don't talk about not being having Oladipo there, and TJ Warren's not there either. So his usage is through the roof. I think he's had 44 more fantasy points in 9 of his last 10 games. So he gives you an incredibly high floor. He's basically reaching 5x value with his floor, and then anything above that is just cake. I like Jared Vanderbilt as a sleeper, not a sleeper, a value. He should play minutes in the high 20s against the Magic. He's been averaging over 1.1 fantasy points per minute. A lot of it's been off the bench and limited action, but he's been playing well, so I like him quite a bit. And then you mentioned Aaron Gordon, man. That guy, he'll put up 60 or he's going to put up 15. You never really know when they're going to come, but it should be a good game environment. I talked about it quite a bit. Orlando, Minnesota, one of my favorite game stacks. So I like him quite a bit. And Bam Adebayo is actually a power forward on FanDuel too. Any interest there? His usage should be pretty high with everybody out.
Yeah, there is interest because of the injuries. Otherwise, probably not. But because of the injuries, I got to be on him. And another guy, Fly Eagles in chat wants to know if you have any John Collins love tonight.
I just haven't really been on Collins. Ever since they picked up Capella, his numbers have gone down a little bit. Capella has actually been a monster if you look at his numbers.
He's been crazy good, man.
Yeah, so I probably won't be on him. But Porzingis, I saw him brought up in the chat a little bit. If you're playing on FanDuel tonight, he's basically free. I think he's $24 over there on FanDuel. So Porzingis, I think he played a full complement of minutes his last couple games. So he's an interesting guy that should be pretty low owned as well.
I got another power forward for you, cheaper option if you guys are into that kind of stuff. I think it's a fair night for Draymond Green here. I think he's been slowly kind of ramping himself up. I think this is a good matchup for him against San Antonio. And so I like some Draymond Green if you're into that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's about as cheap as I see on FanDuel that I want to go. That's $5,400. That's really cheap on FanDuel. So in that same game, you have any interest in LaMarcus Aldridge?
Not really. I mean, if you look at his last 2 games, I don't know why his minutes just dropped. I don't know what is going on there. So that worries me a little bit.
All right, let's do a few questions before we get to the next spot here. So real quick, they're asking Maxi ? And then the next question was, I'm not even going to say who wrote it because that's a little bit obscene, but Maxi ? Or Danny Green, FanDuel GPP. To be honest with you, I'm not on either one of those guys. I can see Danny Green has these games sometimes where he goes crazy, but I'm not with them getting healthier and the big guns back. I'm kind of not on those guys, but do you have any love for Maxi or Danny Green?
I don't think you need him tonight. I know Curry's out. Give me Herter, give me Anthony Edwards. I think they're a little bit better.
Yeah, got that. Cam Johnson or Josh Jackson in single entry. Man, I'm going to go back to what Noto just said. I kind of think you can, on a 9-game, I don't know, is it 9 or 10 now? I think it's 9 games now.
Yeah.
I think you can find options that might be better than those guys. But do you have any love for Cam Johnson or Josh Jackson?
I'm guessing that's a DK question.
Yeah.
They're both pretty cheap over there. Yeah, I don't mind Cam Johnson.
Eamon the man wants to know a Jeremy Lamb in a FanDuel GPP. And unless I'm missing something on Jeremy Lamb, I don't think I'd touch him tonight.
Yeah, so he's active, but I don't know if he's going to see the rotation. So I wouldn't play him until we know if he's even going to play.
Alex says Tristan or Batum, and those are not two guys that are like I have to be honest. I'm playing FanDuel, so I'm limited by positions here, and those guys just don't do it for me at their positions. So, do you have any interest in Tristan or Batum at all?
Not a ton, to be honest with you.
All right, let's go on. Okay, now guys, we're going to talk about centers here in just a minute, but now's the time I'd like for you guys to collectively kind of look at the point spreads, drop you some picks in the chat. We'll try to aggregate what we see and pick out the 3 most popular ones, and then we'll give you those picks as a chat, and we'll talk about them later. But after we do centers, we'll give you our picks for the night. So try to just get in there and just drop some point spreads and some totals on in the chat and see if we can't come up with something good. Now we talk about centers. I think haven't seen the projection ownership yet, but I've heard a lot of Nik Vucevic today, so I think he's going to be very popular. Noto, what do you think about Vuce tonight?
Yeah, going to be especially on DraftKings, really chalk at 8.6K. Enes Kanter was looking like he was going to be pretty popular. Now he's out, so you can't play him. So, yeah, it's hard not to like him. Great matchup. No Towns to go up against. And I believe they're dead last in efficiency against centers so far this season, the Wolves, that is. So I like him. We talked about Capella a little bit. He's had double-digit rebounds in, I believe, every game but one so far this season. So he's certainly interesting. DeAndre Ayton's been playing a little bit better. I do worry about foul trouble with him going up against Christian Wood, but certainly a guy that has a lot of upside for the price. And then if you're going cheap, I wanted to get your thoughts on one guy, DeAndre Jordan. I know we said not to play anybody from the Nets yet, but if you look at his game log, he played 36 minutes the other night. We haven't projected for 35, but if he's playing well, you got to think he's going to be getting easy looks at the rim. He's always going to bring rebounds and blocks, and he's pretty cheap. He's only I can't find his price, 4.8K on FanDuel, and they're going to need him against Drummond. So any interest there?
Yeah, he's on my radar because he's the one guy that the role really doesn't change for him with Harden and Kyrie and Durant back. He's going to play minutes. He's going to protect the rim. He's going to rebound, and this is a good matchup for him getting out there against Drummond. Drummond's not the greatest defensive center in the world, so maybe Jordan can do some things, but he's definitely the most interesting or the most rock solid Brooklyn guy for me because it doesn't change for him. And I'm on the same boat you are with some of the other guys. I like Ayton. I highlighted him. Clint Capella has been putting up some monster numbers, and two more expensive. I'm more likely to go expensive at center tonight. Joel Embiid, I think, has the potential here tonight to do really well. You already talked about the game. Could stay close, man. There's a lot of reasons to think this game stays close. There's a lot of reasons to think Embiid can smash this front court. So like a little Joel Embiid, and I think Andre Drummond checks in as my favorite tournament play today based on low ownership. People are scared because Jared Allen may be taking minutes. And, man, if this game does get out and pick up the pace, he could sprint up and down the court and could be a monster tonight. So I like Andre Drummond as the tournament guy. Anybody else for us at center?
I've never seen Andre Drummond sprint up and down the court.
He's more athletic. He's more athletic than I think he gets credit for. Like he's a big guy, but he's got some wheels on him, man. I've seen it before.
Yeah, he's definitely got upside. Like you said, a lot of people are scared off by Jared Allen. That includes me. I don't think I'm going to play him, so I do think you're going to get really low ownership there. So I do like that in terms of ownership. Any interest? We got like Naz Reid from Minnesota. A lot of front court minutes are open there. Tough matchup against Vucevic, like we mentioned, but he's interesting. And then now Miles Turner is out for Indiana, so more Sabonis and more Doug McDermott most likely.
Yeah, that's a big one for Sabonis. He gets a lot of run. All right, guys, let's talk about some bets tonight. No, we got to do it. Last week we had a rough week all around last week for all of us. I think I was 1-2, and you fell off a little bit. Beer I think caught up to us or caught up to you. I think Beer's ahead of us now. He's maintaining the lead. I don't even have the graphic in front of me, but I know I was 1-2 and you were 0-3 last week, and I think we're both tied now at 3-3, and Beer's one game ahead of the chat. Did okay. The chat's catching up to the chat's 3-3 too. So guys, I'm not seeing any bets out there. Throw some names out there so we can get it for you. I'm gonna start it off here. I got 3 picks for you tonight. I'm going over on that Brooklyn-Cleveland game. I think there's a chance that thing becomes a track meet, and I went over that 225.5. I think Brooklyn's going to score on anybody and everybody the rest of the year. It's just about Cleveland. I think they can keep pace tonight, so I'm going over. I'm going 76ers minus the 5. I know we talked about it maybe being close, but I'm gonna think that maybe when this game's all said and done, the Celtics run out of steam in the fourth quarter, missing Tatum, and the Sixers can pull away. So I'm going Sixers minus the 5, and my last one is a late night hammer. I think Golden State, San Antonio is a good game, but Golden State's playing a lot better with Draymond Green back in that lineup healthy and anchoring that defense. So I'm taking Golden State minus 1. What you got?
I like a lot of those. In my picks that I did today for the grind down, had a lot of those. But I'm going to go Toronto minus 3. I actually liked them when they were at 4.5, and now Hero's out. So that makes a lot of sense to me. They've won 3 games in a row. And if you look at their underlying numbers, they should be a lot better than they are in terms of the standings. So Toronto minus 3. I also like the Sixers minus 5. As I mentioned, it seems like they've been really good at home over the last couple of years, really bad on the road, and no Tatum for Boston. So I'll agree with you on that one. And then let's see, I also have the Nets over, but I don't want to have too many in common with you. So I'll go Orlando minus 4. Usually don't like road favorites, but I just think they're the better team than Minnesota. Plus they're getting Fournier back, and Minnesota just very short-handed. And looks like the chat's got some bets out there for us.
Yeah, let's put them down for Toronto minus 3. Let me write that one down. Toronto minus 3 is definitely oh, dang, I put it in the chat, not in my box. All right. Anyway, you get the point. Toronto minus 3. I see over on the Dallas-Indiana game. I like that one. Let's give them Dallas-Indiana, and let's pick one more. Let's try to go here. Let's go the Clippers minus 10 to smash the Kings. I like that one for them, for the chat. That's good. So we got 3 there. Clippers minus 10, Toronto minus 3, and over on the Dallas-Indiana game. So that's where we are, guys. And you know what? We're at that hour where we can wrap it up now. Notorious, you got anything to say before we sign up out of here?
Oh, man, stack that Wolves Magic game.
Should be a fun night, guys. 9 games. We appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned for Crunch Time coming up next. It's going to be a good slate for Notorious. I'm Head Chopper. We'll be back next week. But for now, we're out of here.